Hi guys, Maikeru here. This is my video on a tier list for double XP skills. In this list, I'm going to go through all of the skills that you would train on double XP and which ones would be better to train than others in my opinion. Obviously, you're going to have the ones in number 1 that everyone expects, but there are some that I may put a bit higher than you think or a bit lower than you think, and I'll give my reasoning for that. There'll be a link to this tier list in the description if you want to make your own and tweet it at me. My Twitter's in the description and stuff as well. It's always cool to see your takes on this. And let me know if you agree or disagree with any of my stuff in the comments down below. So let's get right into it. I want to start off with the two that I would rank the highest, and that is both Summoning and Herblore. The reasoning for these being S tier is Summoning is so quick on double XP with the portable deposit boxes. Even if you use Amlord Hour, that's 40% more XP instead of 20. You save so many charms in the long run, and yeah, it's just insane. Summoning is also such a useful skill, it's 100% worth doing on double XP, not to mention it's a buyable, so it's half the cost. Herblore falls under the same category. It's so quick on double XP, especially if you're going for 120 now with like Power Burst of Vitality or Vuln Bombs. It's just an insane amount of experience an hour on double XP. It saves you a ton of money, and it's such a useful skill to get up for overloads, elder overloads, and all of that. These are the two skills that I would rank S. By far the best to train on double XP, but I'm guessing you guys expected that. Now let's move on to the other ones that you may not have expected, and we'll go from first to last in alphabetical order. Agility is an interesting one because it's both a buyable and a annoying skill. So if you're doing Silverhawks on double XP, agility is so awesome. But also at the same time, if you don't have much money and you're running like Anachronia or you're doing Heffin hours on the Heffin district, agility is really, really good then as well. I honestly think agility goes in the A tier. 1, because of Silverhawks, and 2, just because it's such a horrible skill. Doing a horrible skill for half the time is amazing. Even if you're just going for 75 and doing empty throne room for Prif or something, still worth it. Archaeology, the newest addition to double XP. Should you train Archaeology on double XP? Personally, I'd say not really, but at the same time, Archaeology is the last skill for some people to max. Archaeology is one of the last skills for people to get their comp cape back, getting it to 120. So if you're trying to rush 99 or 120 Archaeology, it's really, really good because you do get your artifacts twice as fast. You complete your logs twice as fast. And then because you're actually getting your artifacts twice as fast, you still get your qualifications done at a good speed and stuff, so you don't get too far ahead of that. So I honestly think Archaeology is a decent one to do on double XP. I don't think it's the best by any means, but it isn't the worst. I'd probably put it somewhere around B tier. It's not quite as good as like Silverhawks in agility, or it's not quite as annoying of a skill as agility. But if you do want to rush it, like I said, for comp or whatever, it deserves that B tier spot. So at this point, it is the combats. The combats are all useful to train, like attack, strength, defense, range, magic, and HP. They're all decent to train in like Elite Dungeons 3 on double XP because it's so fast. But I feel like combat's such an easy thing to do, and you profit with a lot of combat training. I'd probably put it in C tier. Training combat on double XP isn't that bad, but at the same time, like I wouldn't advise it over other things. Training your combat's far worse, even for combat prep, than doing Herblore or Summoning, because they're going to benefit you just as much. So yeah, I think combat deserves that C tier, just because of ED3 being so awesome. And I think the only time I would warrant combat being higher than C tier is, again, if you're rushing a 120 for comp and you're rushing 120 Slayer. Then I'd probably put Slayer in B tier, and you'd get your combats up as a side effect to Slayer. So I think Slayer's a bit more important than combat, but I would still put combat in C and Slayer in B. Oh, look at this one. It is construction. Carpal tunnel syndrome, A tier. I don't think it rewards you with enough to warrant it going into S tier. It's absolutely horrible to do, so doing it for half the time on double XP is amazing, but the reward just isn't as good as something like Summoning or Herblore, so it's gotta be A, not S. Although they have introduced a new portable workbench to make construction flat packs from the bank and to save your hand, but that is a fair amount slower. It's about 50% faster actually going and making those flot sand prawn brokers versus the flat packs, so you lose out on quite a lot of efficiency. But then again, if you want to save your hand or you don't mind AFKing it on double XP, getting a bit slower XP is a decent alternative to construction now, and it definitely makes it less carpal tunnel-y, if that's a word. But yeah, it definitely deserves such a horrible skill to train. Train it on double XP, so you have to train it for half the time. Save money as it's a buyable as well. Yeah, just a good skill to train on double XP overall. Next up is cooking. Cooking profits if you have a Brooch of the Gods, and it's pretty much break even without the Brooch of the Gods nowadays. So I'd probably just put cooking somewhere around D tier because it really isn't that great of a skill to train on double XP. It's not exactly slow to do off double XP, and yeah, I'd just chuck it in D because no one really hates cooking. No one loves it, but it's just one of those skills that you just get done. So it really isn't that great to do on double XP. Next up is crafting. Crafting deserves an instant A. It is so expensive. This skill is so costly, man. Definitely deserves an A. It's not the fastest skill ever compared to some of the other buyables, but it deserves that A spot. It's an expensive skill. It's half the cost on double XP. It's still pretty quick. Yeah, chuck it up there. Divination has changed a lot over the years, and I think with Hall of Memories, Divination deserves an A tier as well, just because of the amount of core hunting parties that happen. It may even deserve an S tier, honestly. Okay, you know I said they're the only two that are going to be an S tier? I take it back. Divination goes in S tier. The reason why Divination goes in S tier is because it benefits Iron Men as well. It's the only skill that you see more Iron Men get 99s in during a double XP weekend because of all the core hunting parties going. The core hunting parties are amazing. They're going constantly on double XP, and it's a requirement for Invention. 100% deserves that S tier, in my opinion. I did go back on my word, but Divination deserves to be up there. Also, when it comes to the ordering of these skills, I'd probably actually put construction and crafting over agility and keep agility the lowest A tier, but construction being the highest A tier because of carpal tunnel. I think all of that's pretty fair. Dungeoneering, the only non-buyable that I would give a solid A. Dungeoneering is a requirement for comp. Getting 120 can be annoying, especially if you're trying to solo it. It's one of the only times where you can find groups, you can actually find people that are doing Dungeoneering in your clan or in World 77, etc. Definitely deserves a high spot because normally if someone's training a non-buyable, the non-buyable that I would say is the go-to on double XP would be something like Dungeoneering or Slayer. And that's mostly because of comp cape, right? But also because it's just much easier to do Dungeoneering with people. Farming's an interesting one because tree runs are amazing on double XP, but player-owned farms doesn't work on double XP. So I think farming's super good and very important to do your tree runs, but things like POF and stuff not benefiting means that it isn't the best buyable ever to do. So I think farming deserves a B tier just because tree runs are amazing, but yeah. I don't think it deserves any higher than that because you're only going to do it once or twice a day, getting your tree runs done, and then you're good to go. Here we go, our first F tier, fire making. Fire making is just not a good skill. It does give you incense sticks, but other than that, there's literally nothing you get from fire making, and incense sticks are okay, but I don't think they're a game changer. Fire making's so easy to train off of double XP, there's no point in really doing it on double XP. It's just not a good skill. Fishing similar to fire making, and honestly, I would put fishing in F if it wasn't for Fishing Frenzy, so it goes to an E. The reason why Fishing Frenzy makes it go to an E is because it's 450k experience an hour, so actively training fishing on double XP can net you 900k experience an hour and get it from 90 to 99 really quickly. Because you unlock Fishing Frenzy at 94 and you can boost to it with an Admiral Pie, it makes those last levels of fishing super quick, which means I think it deserves that E spot and it's a bit better than fire making. Fletching is insanely fast nowadays, and it is a buyable, but it's a super cheap buyable. So I think it's not quite as good as the construction and the crafting, and I think it deserves around a B tier as well. But I think I'll give it a decent B tier. I'll take it to the highest B. I think it deserves that spot, and Doing darts on double XP is what, like 2.5 mil experience an hour if you're doing rune darts. So it's really, really good. And I believe you can even profit doing rune arrows with Brooch of the Gods, which makes it another good one to do. But then it's good to do off of double XP at that point, right? That's why it doesn't deserve A, in my opinion. Still a good buyable to do nevertheless, especially if you don't have tons of money. Okay, Hunter's here and Protean traps exist. That takes Hunter pretty high on carrion Jadinkos with Proteans. Charming Moths exist as well, but a lot of PKers try and grief you on double HP specifically, so that does take that down a little bit. But overall, I think Hunter's a decent one to do. Definitely one of the better non-buyables to do, especially with Proteans. So I'm probably going to put that at a low B. Around where Farming is, I think that's pretty fair to say Hunter is about the same as that. Okay, hear me out on Invention. This might be a controversial one, but Invention goes here. The reason why Invention goes into F tier is because I believe you should never choose to train Invention. Invention gets trained no matter what you do if you can use a augmented tool or a weapon or armor or whatever. It trains itself. So if someone's going into double experience and they're going to train Invention, I don't think that's a good thing to do. You should go and train Slayer, and you'll get Invention done at the same time. Go and train Smithing, get Invention done at the same time. You know, you're getting it leveled up by doing those things. Archaeology even levels up Invention super quickly. So I don't believe Invention should be high because it's only 50% faster, which is not as good as other skills. And it's just a passive thing that you do. So yeah, that one might be a controversial one to put Invention so far down, but hopefully my reasoning makes sense. You shouldn't choose to level Invention, it's just a side effect of doing your other skills. Mining. Again, it's a gathering skill, it's AFK, it's easy to do, it goes with fishing, just because there are some fast ways to do mining with like crystallize and stuff that make it somewhat worth on double XP, but still not worth it enough. And the same would apply with woodcutting as well. Crystallize Acadias and Divine Use as your daily or whatever, that's okay. But it's still not going to be anywhere near as good as a buyable or something like that. So I think these gathering skills should all be low, because you shouldn't really train gathering skills unless you have to. And it's like one of your last skills to train on double XP. Next up is Prayer, and we know that Gilded Altars and Wilderness Altar do not work on double XP. But Heaven does. You can use Cleansing Crystals on double XP, but it's just not worth it. Cleansing Crystals on double XP aren't that much faster than doing Dragon Bones off double XP. They're definitely not twice as fast as that, so you're not getting 2 times XP. You definitely don't half the cost either, as Dragon Bones are pretty cheap to do. You're probably only getting it maybe like 50-60% cheaper. So it's more like 1.5 times experience when doing Cleansing Crystals in Prif instead of 2 times. Same with the saving. So it really isn't as good as any other buyable, but because prayer's needed for combat a decent amount, I guess it makes it a little bit better if you're trying to get your 95 prayer for PVM. I'd probably put prayer with cooking in D, just because it's a little bit better than gathering skills to do, as it is a buyable, but still not a good buyable. And Firewatch do exist, so because of Firewatch, not necessarily Heffin, Firewatch would be up to 800k prayer experience an hour, some combat, some farming, some fire making. Vias are pretty efficient to do in general, so that makes prayer a little bit better. I think it deserves D tier. I think that's fine. Then whereas runecrafting, the Abyss literally just doesn't work very well with double XP. You get 350% with the Demonic Skull, then you get 100% on top of that, so you're getting just over 20% more experience on double XP, meaning Abyss is just not worth it. Runespan's so slow, Runespan's not worth it. The only thing that's worth it for runecrafting is Unstable Essence. So if you have a ton of Runespan points from Traveling Merchant or doing some Runespan, you can buy Unstable Essence and do that on double XP. That's like the only thing that's good to do. So I guess it will go with Invention and be an F. It just isn't worth training unless it's like your last skill for 99. That's the only time I would train it on double XP. Smithing is another one that I'm very, very tempted to put into S tier just because of how quickly it can be trained on double XP. It's literally one of the skills that can get upwards of 7 to 8 mil experience an hour with burial armor. but I don't know whether it's quite as good as Summoning, Herblore, and Divination. Probably going to put it as the highest A tier and take it above Construction, just because you do get it so quickly. But there's a lot of ways to train smithing off of double XP as well, and you can also profit with smithing and stuff like that. So not everyone's going to opt for the really expensive, really fast method, but it's still 100% worth training on double XP regardless. So it gets the highest A rank in my opinion. Smithing is so good. If you're doing smithing on double XP, do remember to use Power Burst of Master Stroke for 36% more XP. It is huge. Always use Power Burst and Master Stroke for smithing. It costs like no money and it's 100% worth. Remember that. Lastly, but certainly not least, we have Thieving. Thieving is kind of like a gathering skill in my opinion nowadays. It's AFK in the wilderness for 600k experience an hour, or you can get over 1 mil if you're actually actively running safe, so it can be super quick. But because it's so much experience AFK off of double XP, I don't think it really entails anything better than like fishing. So I'm probably going to put it as the highest E tier, just a bit better than Fishing Frenzy, and then better than the other gatherers. So that is my overall what to train on double XP, what skills are the best to train, which ones are the worst. Let me know in the comments down below if you agree. Like I said, there was a couple of controversial ones like Invention, but I think I've been pretty fair with the ratings. I know a lot of people like heffing cleansing crystals. I personally am not a big fan of cleansing crystals, so I put that in D, but I know a lot of people will be like, it should be at least B or A. I can expect some of those. But overall, I'm happy with my choices. Do let me know what you think. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Good luck with your double XP gains. Maybe this has enticed you to do a certain skill. Best of luck, and as always, until next time, see ya.